I'm Lucy,
And I'm Nicholas.
and today we are talking about first season finale.
Uh,
So I guess you can start out first, Nicholas.
yeah, okay, so this is Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways. We're just doing these both. I suppose we might as well start with the first note, which the previously on section, which is that whenever I watch this story, I always forget that it's set on Satellite 5. It's like we were just talking, I think it was last episode, about how this series really doesn't have an arc where events actually build up to the finale. We skipped the one episode where that actually happens, which is the long game.
Yeah, that's
Because
really the only
we
episode that has a lot of connection with the finale.
And yet I never think of it like that. Like I always think of the long game as just this really inconsequential filler, but no, it's only because of that episode that this even happens at all. It's like I'm watching these all for the first time, because pretty much nothing about this season is how I remember it being. Like now I feel like we should go back and talk about that episode. We're not going to, probably, but it feels kind of weird. That's one of two that we skipped, and it's the only one that's actually setting up this story.
Well, part of the reason we skipped it is because it doesn't leave much of an impact. I mean, and that's really bad for like a story related episode.
Yeah, we wouldn't have this problem if it were more memorable.
Yeah, we would have talked about it like all of them, but instead we just skip it and then we forget that it even existed for the most part. I always forget that episode.
General thoughts. I really like this story. It's really good. I think it holds up. The read of things is different now than it has ever been. Like, I remember all of my favorite moments, but, the implications of certain scenes, just the way that they're handled and paced, felt way different this time around. And the thing that stuck out with me, and I knew this was going to happen, because it's been a little while since I watched this, but the one thing I've been thinking off the top of my head as we're approaching Bad Wolf especially is that this is going to be real dated. The big thing keeping this from being a perfect, and nothing's perfect, but as close to a perfect two-parter given the story we're trying to tell, is just how dated Bad Wolf is. If you're Russell T Davies, you've got to be thinking, even as you're writing, that it's going to be really weird if all of the TV shows that just happened to be on in 2005 are on several, hundreds of years later. I don't understand how you're writing this episode thinking that that's not immediately going to cause problems.
I guess he thought they would be around forever. I don't really mind the like dated stuff so much. It's a little nostalgic for me, like everything from the fashion to the shows you're talking about, but it definitely does date it, and I can see that being a big problem for a lot of people.
I don't watch game shows also, so that takes me out a bit. As someone who's not familiar with these shows, I don't understand what it is about them that would make you think they'd last that long.
He thought it was going to be like the prices were right. It's always going to be around for 100 million years.
I mean, even that show's been on for decades, and I don't think it's gonna last till 2020. When is this set? Whenever time this is set, like the future after the future.
Maybe he was just banking on it lasting at least 10 more years or at least 20 more years.
This is 100 years after the long game, and that's already far off in the future. Because it's not even just that it's in the future, it's that it's after, the doctors accidentally caused the apocalypse. Because Linda especially mentions that, he took out all information and media for a little while there. I imagine after a complete upheaval of, the internet, of television being gone for who knows how long, I don't think something that we bring back to last is game shows.
I think he's trying to be funny with it, but it backfired.
How much of just Russell T Davies' concepts are supposed to be farcical when he does things like this? Because this isn't the last time this is going to happen. It's something that he gets made fun of, I think, in certain fan circles, is, oh, Russell T Davies is the guy who likes to bring in modern, Londony, just pop culture into the future, and it helps the episodes age pretty poorly. How much of that is just supposed to be just a gag, and how much of it is supposed to make the setting feel more real, like he honestly thinks that some of that stuff is going to carry over in the future?
Most of it is just done as a gag. He thinks, oh, this is going to be really funny, but it just ends up being dated and not work.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy it more than most people. Even like they have like the techno music playing in the background when they're in the Big Brother and the furniture and the fashion. It just looks like it's from the early 2000s.
Stuff like that is fine. I guess it's just context because that music and that like aesthetic is already dated and it's only 12 years out, and it feels like it's supposed to be off-putting and not normal in the episode. It's not a problem of execution. The way that they're done is like once you've decided to put the game shows into your episode, that's how you capitalize on the dated parts so that they feel sort of weird and off-putting. But I'm just not sure what makes you put them in the episode to begin with, you know?
I still think it's just a gag that went bad. He wanted to do something funny with the doctor getting into like a game show, and I guess he thought it was going to last longer than it did, but it just didn't work out that way.
If this were just a one-off episode, Bad Wolf was just a standalone where the Doctor and Jack and Rose got transported into different game shows and they had to like fight their way out. Because I mean, there are episodes of the classic series I think that get that dated, where like we'll deal with something contemporary for the time, and it's like the backdrop of the episode, and it's just a sort of fun, let's put the characters in this situation thing. But then we find out it was all a plan of the Daleks. They've been pulling strings for a while. I forget how much they're in charge, because they have to have been in charge for as long as that girl has been hooked up to the machine. So knowing that the Daleks have been running these game shows is just really weird to me. Get stuff like the android, where like we have Rose being like the android, and we really like linger on that joke for a minute, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Like the first time I watched this episode years and years ago, I'm like, why are we focusing on this droid? Because I don't know who Anne is. I don't know what the weakest link is. So it's a really exclusatory joke for anyone who's not caught up in British pop culture specifically.
And anybody that's like they didn't grow up with it or have some knowledge of it, they're not going to get the jokes later on. Like you, it's like, okay, Android is like, oh wait, it's supposed to be Anne. The show's been off for like I think close to 10 years now, so most people are not even going to know what the weakest link is.
And the joke about President Schwarzenegger, I get it. When you're writing episodes set in the future, any reference to modern day is going to run the risk of being dated once it turns out to be false. I mean, Schwarzenegger was a governor and no one expected that to happen, and I guess it's the principle of like Ronald Reagan was a celebrity who became the president. Now we actually have a celebrity who's president, and it doesn't seem like Schwarzenegger will ever have the opportunity to run. So you kind of shot yourself in the foot. I don't understand how President Schwarzenegger is something that you feel confident enough in to put in your episode. And I know, like, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, maybe in the Doctor Who reality there was a version of reality where Schwarzenegger was president, and that just doesn't exist now, or got erased or rewritten. But I don't know, I don't think that RTD was thinking on that level. I think he was just putting stupid gags in.
I think that's what was happening. He's trying to be funny, and it's fine to have the 2000 jokes and the game show jokes during set in that time period, but when you try to bring it to the future, that's when it falls apart because it's like we get the show is made in 2005, but we're in 2000 or 3000 or 4000 years in the future.
If you're gonna do game shows, why not make really weird, completely original future game shows? Like, why keep the exact ones that are on right now?
I like it, even the dated stuff. I think this is probably the best out of the whole season, and I think it's probably the best regeneration episode we gotten so far.
I mean, if we're including the classic series,
Nah, just a new series.
in that case, we've only got two others to compare it to.
Yeah.
One of which is really bad, and one of which is like completely middle of the road mediocre.
Yeah, very up and down. We'll get to that one. But yeah, I thought this one was pretty good. It was satisfying for a finale, and it all built up to the end of the Ninth Doctor.
And something that I always forget is how everyone has, who we've been following, has an arc that, or at least reaches an end point of some kind here. We'll get to the Doctor and the implications with him in a bit. Like, Jack's character reaches a zenith here. Jackie has a character arc that concludes here. Mickey has a character arc that concludes here. I keep forgetting that of Jackie and Mickey especially. I've never picked up on that, but we've been like building things about the two of them throughout previous episodes that come to a head in this one. And I think that lends to the sense of finality. When Rose gets to the two of them, and Jackie especially, when she mentions met her dad and talks about how she was there, I always forget about that scene, but it's really cool because she's like, that's how good the doctor is. And I think in Jackie's mind, when she leaves the room, it's not just that she knows Rose making the most of her life and saving a friend is what Pete would have wanted. I also think she's thinking, like, yeah, I have the doctor to thank that my husband wasn't completely alone and had someone with him in his last moment before he died. And so it's like, yeah, I owe him one. Go save him, Rose. And so the tension between the two of them and her issues with letting go of Pete's death and like really coping with it to a head.
That seems really cool because it just shows you how being with the doctor can really just change everything. I don't know if like Mickey's truly finished his story arc yet. He still seems to be obsessed with Rose.
Well, like, we know he's gonna change drastically and grow a lot next series, but I think for the arc that we've been focusing on, he and Jackie both want things to be sort of normal. Like, this is the guy who, in the first episode, said just to leave the doctor to die so that the two of them can get out and go back to their normal lives. I think once he comes with that truck, and like, there's the scene where Rose is about to give up and is like, maybe he's right, maybe I should just go back to normal. And Mickey's like, nope, no, I'm not going to let you give up. I think that's a real character growth moment for him. It's changed in him over the course of these episodes, and this is where it leaves him, and it's cool.
Are we going to talk about Rose's little speech in the diner?
I'm going to let you make your point about that first, because I'm not sure where you're going with that.
Probably the best moment that Rose ever had in the series.
Yeah, okay, I can agree with you there, because I was concerned that we might disagree here, because I remember not liking that speech on previous viewings, just because I'd already decided that I didn't like Rose once I heard it, and I just sort of tuned it out as Rose whining. Well, that's like her best moment, at least in this story, if not in general. I just feel like it's undercut later and earlier moments. Like, we talked last time about her being jealous of Linda, making jealous faces, and that's definitely there.
It's
Like,
even worse here.
like Linda and Nine are just talking, and she's just like, no. And then later, after the speech, because the speech really endeared me to her for a minute, I'm like, oh wow, I think I might actually really like Rose in this episode. And then she has the moment where she's like, there's nothing left for me here. And then Mickey's like, nothing, really. And she's like, no. Oh, God, she's awful.
Yeah, that was her big brat moment for the episode.
And then it almost wins me back again with her speech about her dad. I'm so back and forth. Like, we're giving her some really good moments and really good dialogue. And yet we're just giving her these little things that it undercuts all of it and makes her really shallow still.
Those these brat moments that just will not go away.
That she's gained a sense of morals, but she's not gained any appreciation for other people's feelings. She has good ethics because of the doctor, but she's still not really treating the people close to her well in the way that they deserve, I think.
That's a good way of putting it. It's like, okay, she understands there's more important things and stuff, but she's also at the same time dismissing everybody around her.
And like, it would be easier if I didn't also see Jackie and Mickey's side of things, especially Jackie, because all this alien shenanigans, Jackie is not remotely prepared for it. And the doctor does her a solid, send her daughter back to her where it's safe, and her daughter wants to go back and risk her life. Rose makes a really good point about making a stand, but you still gotta see where Jackie's coming from. Like, she's potentially going to lose her daughter forever, and it's just hard that Rose doesn't even think about it on those terms. Like, she's just not caring.
Does she ever, like, explain to Jackie, like, where did she leave the doctor?
She explains that the doctor is in the future and that he could die and that she might be able to do something to help. I'm not sure what Rose is thinking she's going to do to help because she's not aware of what opening the heart of the TARDIS, that's going to, like, make her the bad wolf or whatever. She doesn't know that that's going to happen, so in the moment, I'm siding more with Jackie, like, no, there's nothing you can do. If the doctor dies, he dies. If he lives, he lives. You, Rose Tyler, are not going to help. He sent you here to be safe, follow his last wishes, be with your mom and your boyfriend who you still haven't really broken up with. It's just such a weird thing of like, I'm on Rose's side because I want her to be proactive and I want the doctor to have help. But at the same time, like, there's just too much of an argument for not doing it that I don't think we discuss as much as we should. Or at the very least, she doesn't acknowledge it. Jackie and Mickey raise the point, and Rose doesn't really have a counter argument outside of it's the right thing to do.
I mean, I think the reason why we side with her is kind of because of that big speech that she makes in the diner. But really, when it comes down to it, it's like you said, there's nothing she can actually do.
Yeah, it's like you want to be on Rose's side because she's right. This show is all about espousing that kind of philosophy of like be proactive, fix a problem. If you know that something bad is happening, you have to do something. You can't just sit around. But at the same time, you have to question, okay, so she's going to open the heart of the TARDIS, and then what?
They don't really give us an idea of what the heart of the TARDIS actually does besides making hard aliens an egg.
And there's another moment that I'm sort of iffy on, where I'm not really sure if it's a real problem or if it's just my interpretation. She and the doctor are talking right before he sends her off, and she's like, why don't you go back like a week earlier and warn the satellite about what's going to happen? And the doctor explains that he can't do that because then he'd be part of events. And then he says, we could just leave. She says, you'd never do that. And the doctor says, you could have at least asked. It never occurred to you to even ask. 2 lines of dialogue ago, she said, go back a week and warn them, with the implication I got from it being, go back a week and warn them so that this is no longer a problem. I don't know if it's just me projecting that meaning onto it, or if it's just a poorly conceived, like, way to write that line.
It's more her just trying to figure something out, a solution to the problem.
I don't know. I feel like Ed would have a more solid read on that than I do. It struck me as really weird because the way it seems is like she just said, let's find a way to leave, and he just said, you'd never even think of that. I don't know. It's weird. I think I'm just projecting because of my dislike of the character.
Oh, here's Edward.
Hi.
I'm asking if whether or not I'm reading this line totally wrong. You know, the one right before the doctor sends her off, and he's like, you'd never even think to ask to just leave. And I'm like, but a couple of lines ago, she just said, why can't you just go back a week and warn them? And I took from that line so that it's no longer a problem and we can just leave. And I don't think that's what that line is supposed to mean, but that's how it seemed to me at the time.
Well, it's just she doesn't really understand completely how the TARDIS works, so she figured that the Doctor could possibly just go back in time and warn them because time travel.
Yeah, but then I'm thinking like, okay, so Rose's plan is go back in time and warn them, and then what? I mean, do she and the Doctor and Jack then just leave?
You know what? It's another damn it Rose moment. I don't care.
Yeah, because we were just talking about how she's sort of a good character this episode. A couple of damn it Rose moments.
I think you're just reading too much into that line, Nicholas. I think it was just her, like, trying to figure out a solution to the problem, because I could see myself saying the same things.
Yeah.
Not in a, I just want to get rid of them kind of way. Just, we need to figure out a solution to the problem.
There's nothing left for me line still gets me, though. I still don't like that line. The stuff with Linda is still super unnecessary. And Linda herself, since we're talking about her, usually when I watch this story, I like her a lot. Here, she didn't do anything for me. Just this watch through, I don't think she really contributed anything.
She was okay for me. I liked her. She's just there. I mean, she doesn't really have much of a purpose. She just kind of dies.
She's likable, but you could do this episode, or these 2 episodes without her.
She's more likable than Rose, and that's enough for me.
I'm just trying to think of, like, why do you put her in this episode, other than to be a foil to Rose, but they don't really talk. There's not really any point made about how they're different or similar. I don't really know why she's here.
Give the Doctor information about, like, the setting that they are in, and ask her a lot about this time that he doesn't really know about.
Probably just exposition, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, she's good for that, but the rest of it, I mean, she's just kind of there. But she's likable, so, I don't mind her in it.
And I suppose since we're still sort of on the subject of Rose, we should talk about her dying, not dying.
Oh, yeah.
And how terribly she
Like,
treats Mickey again.
yeah, we went over that. I mean, to be fair, in this story, I think it's only one moment. Or, well, two moments.
Can't spend the rest of her life thinking about the doctor all the time.
Yes, that. And she's just not paying attention to a word of it because the bad wolf gets her attention. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it, bad wolf, it's a big deal, those words have been following you around. But, I don't know, at least address what he's saying. He's really bearing his heart to you right now. And then later when she's like, there's nothing left for me here, and he's like, nothing, and she's like, nope. I watched Series 2, or at least episodes of Series 2, before I ever watched any of Series 1, so there was never a moment where I thought she was actually dead. I'd be shocked if you actually thought she legit died, if that was your first time going through.
Pretty decent fake out, I think. Because, she turns to ash. You expect her to be dead from that.
It's just the way that the episode carries on after it, like, the doctor is completely silent for a long time. Like, it's just, we get really somber for like a minute or two. And I feel like we could have used another couple of minutes where we're just sitting with that tone. We have the scene where he and Jack and Linda are captured, and it's really somber and it's really kind of oppressive. And then he and Jack beat the guards up and they escape. He's got the weapon, and I think what the episode is trying to do is they're trying to fake you out. They're trying to make you think, oh, Rose is dead, the doctor is completely pissed, he's actually going to go up to that control room and just shoot everybody up. But I think we needed like a little bit more time for that fake out to sit, because the way it stands, it's like they escape, they get in the elevator, it's about 20 seconds later, of course I was never really going to shoot you, and then we get a bunch of comedy lines that are really funny, but they seem kind of at odds with the tone we were just trying to set.
Maybe it would have worked better if it was like they killed her off like halfway through the episode.
It doesn't really bother me that much.
It didn't bother me that much, because I feel like this whole story handles its time really well, and that felt like the one moment where we were rushing to meet a certain time limit. Because I'm convinced that's what the episode's trying to do. It's trying to make you think, oh, the doctor's like so far gone over Rose's death that he could actually just shoot everyone. Like, he's not even just trying to escape in the TARDIS anymore. He's just out for blood. And I don't think we spend enough time in that headspace.
Like you said, there's not enough time for it to really sink in.
Granted, even knowing that she survives, the scene leading up to her getting disintegrated, that is genuinely tense. Like, I know what's gonna happen, and yet the way it's directed and the music, as it's like building up, they're in the elevator, she can't get the questions right, she sees them, they come into the door, and then it was really tense. It was a really well done, like, oh crap, what's about to happen?
Should we talk about Bad Wolf?
Deus Ex Machina!
I mean, the fact that it's nothing. She sees the words Bad Wolf. They're the name of the program or the station or whatever. She takes them, puts them in their past adventures.
There to justify planting the useless seeds.
Yeah, but then why did you plant the seeds in the first place? We keep giving the Doctor and Rose these lines of like, those two words have been leading me to this place. No, they haven't. None of the times that you've encountered Bad Wolf have led to you reaching the Bad Wolf station. Every time those words appeared, it coincided with a moment that, like, indirectly led to them eventually going back to Satellite 5, then maybe, but no, they're just words that are there.
If it turned out that like the Bad Wolf station was responsible for most of the problems they encounter throughout the series, then it would have been something cool. But no.
Unless, is it just supposed to be that when Rose or the Heart of the TARDIS or whatever sends those words back, it's just supposed to be like Rose sees them, and when she's having that conversation with Mickey, that's like the push she needs to be like, no, these words are here for a reason, I gotta get back to the Doctor. Is Rose just putting them back there for herself? Will eventually come back and save the Doctor.
Pretty much. I mean, that's pretty much the only point they have. But to me, the only reason the Bad Wolf thing even exists is to house this dark, mysterious thing throughout the season that's supposed to connect everything with a god-awful payoff.
Because now I'm thinking, is that just supposed to be red herring? Like, everyone thinks, oh, Bad Wolf is building to something, or, oh, Bad Wolf was meant for the Doctor to, like, trap him here, because he thinks it was the Dalek's plan at first. And that was all like intentional setup for a fake out, where it's just, no, Rose put those words there for herself so that she would feel inspired to go help the doctor.
That's what they exist there for now, but could take it out completely and just have Rose sitting on the bench and just her mind click and say, hey, wait a minute, what about when I saw that bright light out of the TARDIS, and then run back to it?
It's still not a good payoff. I just think it was intended as a fake out.
It might have been, but I think personally, if they wanted something to connect all the episodes together and they just, let's have these dark, mysterious words, and then bam.
Let's talk about Jack and where he ends around here. Like, he's mostly sort of like comic relief until around, I guess, the third act of the story, you could say.
He's now the character we come to know and love as.
Yeah, and I like that we've been charting, like, how much of a good person he is. And the moment that really stuck out to me is, like, I think, character moment he has before his sacrifice is when it's him and the Doctor and the Dalek Emperor over the communications thing. And the Dalek Emperor is like, oh, didn't you know, once he finishes that Delta Wave, it's not just going to kill Daleks, it's going to kill everyone. Yet Jack says, all right, fine, it's okay, do it. It's for the greater good. The universe will ultimately be safe. And I feel like that's a big moment of, like, differentiating Jack, because Rose and every other companion that we will get would have been like, no, you gotta find a different way. You can't risk killing everyone on Earth just to kill the Daleks. But Jack is just like, no, dude, the needs of the many, do it.
That's the main thing that differentiates Jack from the Doctor. It's like, the Doctor can't usually find any other way out of it, whereas Jack simply can't. He can only see the tough choice to do. He doesn't have the luxury of the Doctor's brain.
Yeah, like when we get to the are you coward, are you killer, and he says coward any day, a lot of people see that as an inspiring moment. He didn't have a backup plan. He was gonna let the Daleks take over the universe to, like, assuage his own conscience and his own sense of, like, morality. He just got lucky that Rose happened to show up with the TARDIS and fix the problem for him. The way that this story ends, it's the end of a character arc, you could argue, for everybody but him. He's grown in the sense that, like, his anger at the Daleks over the Time War and his Survivors Guild has been assuaged to a point. He won't just murder all the Daleks for the satisfaction of ridding the universe of their filth. Same time, like, what was he gonna do?
He had no backup plan, and
Like,
that's why I can't really get behind the moment, like, because it's like, okay, Doctor, you're just gonna let basically alien Nazis take over the human race because you think it's unmoral to kill them all of a sudden?
Like, I think it's a fascinating way to end this story and end this season, but you really have to capitalize on that, and you have to follow up on it in upcoming episodes, and I don't really think that we do. He, like, put his own need to keep his hands clean above everyone's well-being, and no one calls him out on it. No one points out that, no, dude, you doomed the universe for, like, a few minutes there. It was like a solid minute where the universe was screwed and it was your fault.
Yeah, it was. If he didn't have Rose, that's basically what would have happened. I think a lot of people just kind of dismiss it because everything worked out, so, you know, it doesn't matter. But yeah, the Doctor basically said, screw the universe.
If your plan wasn't to, like, make that a big sticking point for his character in the future, what you could have done, have him hesitate a little bit more. Like, he doesn't outright say he's not going to do it. He hesitates for a few more beats, and then Rose shows up and takes the choice out of his hands before he's, like, firmly made a decision. But no, he firmly decides, I'm not doing it, and then Rose shows up. Maybe he had a plan that he forgot about, or maybe we'll get to future episodes and we'll talk about that more than I remember us doing. But especially since it's such a contrast to how Moffat will handle it, like 11 and especially 12 will be the exact opposite philosophy, and I feel like we have to a transition. Like, there has to be a moment in Series 2 where we're, like, addressing that aspect of the character.
Just got done with the Time War, and I guess they were trying to show us and tell us that the Doctor isn't a warrior anymore, and he can't do this. The War Doctor, he doesn't have it in him anymore. I think they were going with that. Still have this problem of the Doctor basically saying that he's going to let everybody die or get enslaved by Daleks just so he can have the moral high ground.
And that's another way I think that this whole season and this episode especially is sort of fascinating when you look at it having watched Day of the Doctor. We mentioned in Rose whether or not that's supposed to be like pretty much his first adventure after he's regenerated, and I think it works out for the best if that's the case. He gets really angry, like cannot believe that the Daleks survived the Time War when he thought he wiped them out, when no, the Time Lords are alive, and the only reason the Daleks are also alive is because you decided to save Time Lords, that you decided to end it, that let the Daleks keep going on. Nine, again, has himself to blame for them, sort of to thank for the fact that it wasn't nearly as bad as he thought it was, and he doesn't realize it, and that lends to, like, the tragedy.
Let's move on to another topic. How about the regeneration scene?
I don't really have much to say about that. It's not like the regeneration from 10 to 11, where we get like a solid minute of this is who this character is now. It's just one line. Ten's character is going to get really inconsistent at times, but it's clear that David Tennant already knows how he's going to perform this role this early on, so I'm just like, yeah, that's the 10th Doctor. Here he is. There's no like growing pains process in terms of just Tennant's acting. Like he's got it right off the bat, and that's really all there is.
Do you think it's better just to have a short, like 10-second or one line, or give them like a whole minute?
11 is the only one we've really done that with. We can count 8, I guess. It's all in one movie. By the end of the first act, he's regenerated, so we get a few minutes with him like really fresh off the regeneration, but it's only those two. Everyone else has been like they regenerate and then the episode ends, and then we deal with all the post-regeneration weirdness and establishing the new character in the next episode. That's even how we did it with 12. Personally, I love the way that we do it with 11, and I don't really have anything special to say about the way we do it with 8, but I wouldn't mind seeing us try that again. What I would do, just to shake things up and to be like a surprise, is to actually have him regenerate in the middle of a story. Like, have the Doctor thrust into a problem and then see how the new regeneration is the different ways that he goes about that exact same problem that he's still stuck in.
I think that'd be cool, but I think the problem with that is I think everybody wants to see one last hurrah with the current Doctor, so I don't think we'll ever get that.
Mark my words, if I ever become a showrunner on Doctor Who, that's gonna be the thing that I do.
Honestly, I prefer this method of regeneration. Just tell a good story first, and then just put the regeneration scene right at the beginning. Don't make it this big, over-the-top event like they did with Tennant and Smith when they were leaving.
Well, I mean, to be fair, with Tennant and Smith, like, I don't like the way they do it with Tennant especially. That story, whether you want to call it a good one or not, that story is over by the time we get to that regeneration, and I don't think it needed more time spent on it. The end of time was already too long.
It could easily be one part.
And the regeneration itself is overblown, but that minute with Smith at the end is the best part.
Yeah, that was the best part for me.
Since I brought up 8, something that just, and probably isn't remotely true, but something that just struck me on this viewing was like, how much do you want to or want not bet that making the Daleks half human in this episode is like a callback / riff on 8 saying that he's half human?
That never happened.
Because, like, whatever, he said it, he's probably lying, making it up, whatever, post-regeneration weirdness. But just because that was the last big live-action anything for this series, we have a movie of Doctor Who, and then the very next Doctor Who thing is also a half-human thing as a plot point, where it's like, we made the Doctor half-human, but not really, and then our next big story arc is, oh, the Daleks are half-human. So how different are they really?
I don't think they were thinking that deep of a level.
I think that the Daleks being half human and them just hating themselves, I think that's just a creative way to make them more deadly.
Yeah. Even though I sort of don't get that reasoning, like, they hate themselves, that makes them more dangerous than ever. That's one of those, like, you say that, but I don't get how that's the case.
It means that there's gonna be nothing to get them to exterminate you later. There's no leverage with them if they don't really care about their own existence, like there is with other Dalek encounters.
Wouldn't it be the opposite, though? Because, and we'll get to this by Series 3, where being half-human makes them more open to reason and emotion and stuff. But the thing that would like presumably stop like a 100% pure Dalek just killing you on the spot is that if you don't serve a purpose to their incredibly objective, logical based plans, then why would they keep you around? Whereas, I don't know, human Daleks could at least conceivably possess sentiment, subjectivity, and just not doing things the most logical, best for the plan way. You'd think that that would make them more susceptible to weakness than more dangerous. It seems like just one of those lines that we give our characters to up the stakes without really understanding the implications.
Are all the Daleks from now on half human?
No.
They're up until Series 5. Series 5 kills the half-human Daleks, I think.
Then we've got Davros's Daleks, which were grown from a cell of his own body.
Oh, right, the Cult of Skarl. It's really weird. Like, we're gonna go back and forth, the half-human Daleks versus pure Daleks, but I think, like, when we officially get rid of them, the Series 5 episode, with the iPod Daleks, as everyone calls them.
The Power Ranger Daleks.
There you
Go, go,
Yeah,
Power Rangers!
And this is another thing we'll go back and forth on, with just, like, how we present the Daleks and how genuinely threatening they are. The scene where he's talking to them, and Mr. TARDIS pointed this out in his review of these episodes, but the scene where he's got the force field and he's got Jack and Rose, and he's basically just telling them to screw off, and then he leaves, and the final shot is really good and really effective, where he's got his head against the TARDIS door, and you hear them shouting, "Exterminate," and we never cut back to the Daleks, and it's like, that's one of those moments where it's like, it's so easy to just think of the Daleks as, oh, they're just a monster on a TV show, because that's what they are, but then there's moments like that where it's like, no, if you're the Doctor, hearing that voice yell, "Exterminate," is like the worst sound you could ever hear.
The best villains are the ones that affect the hero on a personal level.
Yeah.
This scene really works because it just shows you, like you said, you're thinking, oh, just another monster for the week, and then we actually see that the Doctor takes them very serious. Even if he's going around making jokes and stuff, underneath it all, he takes them very serious.
Like, he'll screw around with them when they're face to face, but then, like, the moment he shuts the door, you're like, no, he has nightmares about those things.
Yeah, especially after everything that he saw about in the Time War that we don't know. Then there's the Dalek fatigue after seeing them come back year after year after year.
I wasn't thinking about that on this viewing because that's not something that's going to be a problem until later. I'm always open to a reappearance depending on how we handle it, because I like this episode for like how we use them for thematic reasons, and also just this is the one time where like we have this giant Satellite 5. It's like the Justice League headquarters pretty much. There are hundreds of people in here, and they clear the whole facility. There's not a single living being left on that station when the Doctor and Rose finally leave. And that's a moment of like, yeah, no, you do not mess with these things. You get a sense, I think, of how many people are in Satellite 5, both with this and the long game. Knowing that a few Daleks, not even that many, emptied the whole place, that's terrifying. But then we'll get to episodes where fade Earth, and there will be even more of them, and yet the casualties will seem relatively few.
It's like 1 minute one can take out a whole city, the next minute it takes an army.
The whole problem of keep on trying to do something bigger and better when that's not really what makes the Daleks scary. It's like when you have too much of them, you don't really get the time to have them, kill people.
The problem, I think, when you really boil it down, is that they keep mismatching the number of Daleks they use with the kind of story they're trying to tell. Especially with the big example I think we're all thinking of is the end of Series 4. When we get there, we've got a bajillion Daleks killing people, putting them in gas chambers pretty much, and yet that story is supposed to end on a really upbeat, idealistic note. If you ultimately want your story to be really triumphant, you do a couple of Daleks. Here, I think we do it well, where we've got hundreds and hundreds of Daleks, and everyone's dead. The story ends on a real down note. Even the Doctor sort of died. Rose almost died. Jack did die. He got brought back, but Jack got killed. Everyone's dead.
You never did go back for him, though.
Then it's established in Utopia that the Doctor purposely left Jack behind.
We'll get to that. But yeah, I think for now it's just supposed to be a bittersweet, like, oh, he's alive, but they don't realize it. But yeah, I mean, just everyone's dead. The story ends on a down note. That justifies using tons and tons of Daleks because, in a way, they win. They win. The Doctor gives up. The only reason the Daleks lose is because Rose used cheat codes. Like, that doesn't make the Daleks seem less threatening when they lose this time because they didn't really.
Yeah, cheat codes.
That's a good one.
Like,
okay, let's do this.
It's God mode.
Let's write down X, Y, B. There, I broke the game.
Unlocked God mode Rose. But yeah, the Daleks won this episode, so that justifies using as many of them as we do. Do we have anything to say about how, like, the Daleks being made half-human, like, gives them religion? Because I'm not really sure what the episode's trying to say.
The whole religious part is a bit silly.
It would be less silly if every single line out of the Emperor Dalek's not mouth, if every single one of his lines wasn't some kind of religious reference. It's a religious thing.
With that, it would kind of make more sense if it was Davros, because Davros has always had a bit of a god complex.
Is the episode trying to say that, like, humans are inherently religious, or that, like, human nature is to gravitate toward religion? I don't know what we're saying.
There's no meaning.
Isn't he mad at this point, the Emperor?
Well, they all are. They hate their own existence so much it literally drove them insane. I just figure if you're gonna make it such a riff on Christianity in particular, then, like, say something with it. And maybe the episode is and we're just not picking up on it. Other, like, little plot thing that I wanted to mention is how it ultimately ends, which is the kiss.
Oh, the kiss. No!
Now more than ever, because I've gone on and on about how my perceptions of this season have really changed with this viewing, and it is not what I remember it being at all. This is not that relationship. Rose and the Doctor are not in a physical romantic relationship or building to one in this series at all. This would make sense if it came after the regeneration and their first kiss was like after he'd been 10 for a little while and they'd established a sort of romantic chemistry. Here it's like Nine and Rose do not have romantic chemistry at all. They are not, like, romantically attracted to each other. That's just not this relationship.
What?
But now, more than ever, I'm thinking of it as she's 19, so it's just really creepy. And it seems like we didn't do it for any other reason than they are the male and female leads in a television show, and we like to have our male and female leads kiss for some reason.
And Russell loves Rose too much.
I don't even think it's a matter of Russell loving Rose. Her being the one who saves the day, that's him loving her too much, you could argue. That's not something you do just because you're affectionate for the character. That's something that you do because you're like, oh, in today's modern TV climate, people are going to find it weird if there's a male and female character who are main characters and they don't kiss at some point. Like, that just feels really obligatory and not these characters.
Well, I'm going to probably have to disagree. I do feel like throughout the season that it feels like they are building up to this kiss and having a physical relationship. It just feels that way to me. Like, they do seem to have a sexual interest in one another.
I don't know. Like, maybe the Doctor dances and the empty child, but then how much of that is just Moffat loves putting innuendo in all of his dialogue between all of his characters?
Even the longest game has some in it where they're just very flirty and, like, holding hands and looking at each other with eyes all the time.
I guess the writers were told to keep the romance PG.
I think that's the problem right there, is they want to have a romance, but they wanted to keep it, like, G-rated, so it had to be, like, very subtle. But I think it's pretty obvious that the Doctor and Rose like each other in that way.
I don't know. Like, In general, I don't like what the modern series has been doing, where we're consistently making all of the doctors like romantic, sexual inclined people. Like, I just prefer the doctor to be not necessarily asexual, but like not someone who's inclined to thinking of romance and sex very highly.
I mean,
Is
isn't that
because,
what Jack is supposed to be for?
yeah, it feels like the only reason we're doing it is because modern TV audiences need romance between main characters. I don't know. This just seems like the wrong character to be doing this kind of thing with.
I like it when the companion is just a friend and stuff, but I do feel like when I'm watching these two that they are slowly becoming a couple, whether I like it or not. I
Yeah.
mean,
Like when we get to Clara especially, it's gonna get really weird because we sort of start their relationship on a weird romantic sexual note. As they get closer, they get less and less romantic and sexual. Like it just becomes codependence instead of romance, and I think that's interesting, but we'll get to that when we get to that. With Rose, always feels super forced. Final thoughts. This episode's really good. It's got a couple of things I would fix, pretty much all involving Rose, and like the game show stuff. That should be a little thing, but it's such a big part of the episode that it really takes me out of it. But outside of those two major things, I think this is a really good episode. One of the better finales. Really well directed. I sort of brought it up earlier, but the one thing that I want to make sure gets praised is that the direction is brilliant. And I don't think that Russell will ever write another finale this good. I may be proven wrong going through these, but who knows?
yeah, this was probably his best finale. It's a legitimately great episode. I mean, I enjoyed it. I think it's the best regeneration episode we had so far, and I liked how it didn't feel like the whole episode was just about leading up to the doctor dying. It kind of comes out of nowhere. I think that works better.
This to me is the best Doctor Who finale, which doesn't really say much because half of them are pretty terrible.
Nah, not really.
It's going to take us a while, but when we get to the finales, I'm going to debate you on that. I mean, not the fact that half of them are terrible, but that this one is the best one.
Really, only one I would say is truly terrible. And if we were counting the specials, I would count that one. Yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, this was pretty solid. I don't think it's the best, though, by far, but it's pretty good.
So I guess next week we're doing Christmas Invasion.
Yeah.
Only good RTD Christmas special. The next Doctor is also pretty good.
Anyway, see you guys next time.
Yeah, bye.